Call the meeting to order, and we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there any public input on the agenda items only? Okay. I guess we're going to redo this. It says a nomination is needed. We're going to redo it. Nomination is needed for person, Vermillion County Board of Elections.
Seconded. That's Attorney Kim Best is nominated as a chairperson.
We're ratifying this because the last meeting was an emergency called meeting and we didn't have time to effectively advertise for it. So we just want to do a little housekeeping. Is there any public input on that? Okay, all in favor of myself being the chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and I'm going to recess this meeting. Call to order the Northumberland County Board of Elections, Monday, March 20th, 2023, 1 o'clock. Is there any public input on these agenda items? Seeing none. It is announced that an executive session was held on Wednesday, March 15th, 2023, from 9:30 a.m. until approximately 10:30 a.m. to discuss pending litigation. Number 5, a motion is needed to approve and dispense with the reading of the minutes of the February 7th, 2023 election board meeting. This is a ratification. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Number 6, a motion is needed to authorize the solicitor to respond to the litigation caption 2, Matalevich versus Northumberland County Board of Elections, CV 23-480. This is a ratification. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is there any need, it doesn't say this, but is there any need for an executive session from the board?
I don't believe so. I will note that said response that was previously authorized was filed, and there is a hearing on this Friday at 11 o'clock in courtroom number 1 at the courthouse.
Number 1. Is there any old business? Any new business from the board? Any public input? Yes. Daily item?
Yes. I guess the question we would...
I'm just going to repeat the question so that both I understand you and two, so that it's heard for the recording, because unless you're speaking into the microphone, then you're not heard. So your question is a procedural question. Your question is, once this was filed and it was supposedly in front of the board, because we're on the opposite side of the V, Matalevich versus the Board of the Elections, you're wondering why now it's proceeding to court on Friday?
Without even coming to you first, I guess, would be...
Okay.
So mandamus
yeah.
action, which we don't have the power, but not.
Procedurally, it would be the answer to that question, and then if anybody disagrees with me or wants to add, think of this more like a administrative procedural function, much like a preliminary hearing, if that helps. So the question would be to look at the petitions as they were filed and any evidence that surrounds that. And our job here as a board is to give notice to the candidate, and that then they usually will then file and proceed to court. But we have no authority under this board's action. It's not a matter of timing. We just don't have the authority, as Judge Jones has said, to do a mandamus action. That has to be in the Court of Common Pleas.
And if I could add that, because I think there was a second part to the question, and again, correct me if I'm mistaken. The second part of that is there wasn't a board in existence. There's always a board in existence. It's just a matter of who's on the board. So that's why the reorganization part was held last time to say who's on the board. So the board always exists. It just changes who's on the board. So the lawsuit was against the board. Now the board now is different than it was.
The only reason why I asked
Yeah.
is there would have been 2 other people on the board, but because they're running and weren't.
So I was verbally, on the board, and we were seeking the other members at that time. And so we didn't formally become a board until the last meeting when we had the reorganization. But in that window of time, the other 2 commissioners who did serve on this board were unable to answer, in fact prohibited from, because they are running, as you said, so they can't take any board action. So that's why we had to have the meeting last week to reorganize this board officially.
So when this was filed, there was a board, but just.
I
He
was.
was the only member.
I was the only member. Correct. A member of one.
We're the replacements.
So technically, when it was filed, it was sued against you.
Board, right, the board, right.
And then I guess the last thing would be, and we just have to ask.
Filed directly to court, I believe, right. Both. So procedurally, it might be something that the board would have to discuss, but again, our purpose is to serve notice on the candidate that maybe their petitions, there's something wrong with them, whether there's a defect or they will or will not be accepted. It's for that sole purpose, at looking at the petitions, or looking at the complaint. And then we have our office render a written letter, with copies of petitions filed. Right. Think of it as it's kind of like a preliminary hearing for administrative, is that a fair assessment? Yeah. Sure. Any other questions? Do you have any comments you want to make on behalf of the office, or you good? Okay. All right, I'll recess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.